A single missile, silent, unseen, pierced the skies over Haifa. Within seconds, a city block vanished in fire. No sirens, no warnings, just impact. Israel's defenses, once hailed as impenetrable, stood frozen. This wasn't a drill. This was hypersonic war, and it had begun. The cost was instant and brutal. Homes flattened, families lost. But the true damage? Trust in the shield was shattered. What happens when the world's most defended skies are breached, without resistance? Markets trembled. Oil surged. U.S. bombers scrambled. NATO sounded emergency calls. In Tehran, the supreme leaders smiled. In Washington and Tel Aviv, red lights glowed. The fuse was lit. Allies took their positions. But what if Iran is just the beginning? What if this technology, hypersonic, evasive, unstoppable, falls into other hands? Hezbollah, North Korea, a rogue actor? This isn't just about Israel. It's about a global tipping point. Stay with us as we uncover the weapon, the warning, and the war no one was ready for. Without sirens, without warning, without time to react. At exactly 7:04 p.m. local time, the skies above Haifa and Tel Aviv erupted into flames. Residents had just begun dinner, children were finishing homework, shops still buzzed under the pale orange dusk, when suddenly long streaks of fire-red contrails slashed the skyline. These weren't fireworks. These weren't tests. These were missiles, and they were falling fast. In under 60 seconds, Iranian-launched ballistic projectiles, tracked only by delayed satellite feeds, pierced Israeli airspace undetected. One struck a commercial district near Haifa port, turning reinforced concrete into a mushroom of dust. Another hit near a military logistics hub outside Ramat Gan, engulfing nearby fuel reserves in towering flames. Panic swept through the streets. Power grids flickered. Parents screamed their children's names as glass shattered across storefronts. It wasn't just chaos, it was shock warfare. But perhaps the most terrifying revelation came minutes later. No missile was intercepted. Israel's vaunted Iron Dome, David's Sling, and even Patriot systems had remained entirely silent. Not because they failed to act, but because they never saw the missiles coming. A complete radar lapse. An unseen hand struck first and struck deep. This is no longer a warning. It is a war declaration written across the heavens, announced Ayatollah Khamenei within hours of the attack. We have slapped the Americans and pierced the heart of Israel. This wasn't retaliation. It was choreography. It was intentional escalation, and the world had just watched it unfold live. At the center of the blaze that lit up Haifa's skyline is more than a missile. It is a message forged in fire. Its name, Haj Qaseem. Named after Qasem Soleimani, the late commander of Iran's elite Quds force, this missile is not merely an engine of destruction. It is Iran's epitaph to a martyr, slain by a U.S. drone strike in Baghdad on January 3, 2020. For Tehran, that assassination was not the end of Soleimani. It was the ignition point. And now, nearly 5 years later, his name returns to the sky, not as a ghost, but as vengeance in motion. Unveiled in August 2020, the Haj Qaseem is the successor to the Fateh 110 family, upgraded with cutting-edge evasion technology and a fearsome 500-kilometer warhead. It carries a declared range of 1,400 kilometers, capable of reaching virtually every major city in Israel from western Iran. But its payload is heavier than just high explosive. It carries the collective memory of loss, betrayal, and defiance. This is not a missile. It is a signature, said Iranian Defense Minister Aziz Nasirzadeh during its state reveal. We are not firing in the dark. We are targeting injustice with precision. Beyond its ballistic capabilities, the Haj Qaseem is symbolic warfare, crafted to avenge, to provoke, and to reclaim narrative dominance. With it, Iran transforms grief into deterrence and martyrdom into military doctrine. Its upgraded cousin, the Qassem Basir, boasts optical tracking and radar evasion. Technology meant not only to destroy, but to shame the opponent's defenses. In this war, missiles are not just metal. They are monuments, flying at hypersonic speed, inscribed with history and rage. And when they fall, they don't just break concrete, they break the illusion of immunity, strip away the symbolism, and what remains is a marvel of military engineering. A missile that has shattered not just buildings, but the perceived dominance of Western-made defense systems. The Haj Qaseem missile is not a relic of old Cold War arsenals, but a modern threat, forged with precision and purpose. Iranian state sources report that the missile spans 11 meters in length, weighs close to 7 tons, and travels at Mach 12, approximately 14,800 km/h, earning it a place among the hypersonic elite. This velocity places it well beyond the reactive capabilities of traditional defense systems, which were never designed to track and intercept targets moving at such speeds. Built with a solid fuel, two-stage propulsion system, the Haj Qaseem can be launched with minimal preparation and maximum surprise. It is deployed via Mobile Transporter Erector Launchers, TELs, often disguised as civilian cargo trucks, enabling Iran to maneuver launchers across deserts, urban centers, and mountain ranges, undetectable until the moment of ignition. Its true menace lies in the terminal phase. The missile carries a maneuverable re-entry vehicle, MARV, capable of erratic flight paths, using optical and infrared seekers paired with inertial navigation systems. Crucially, it operates independently of GPS, denying adversaries the chance to jam or spoof its trajectory. Tehran's claim? A mere 5% chance of successful interception. Now compare that to the best of Israeli and American defense. Iron Dome, effective for short-range subsonic threats. David's Sling, maximum interception speed, 9,200 km/h. Arrow 3, theoretically capable of countering ICBMs. Top speed, 11,100 km/h. Patriot, PAC-3, 6,100 km/h. None of these systems are designed to stop a target that is faster, stealthier, and capable of mid-air evasive maneuvers. And this is not speculation. Satellite telemetry, radar blackouts, and on-the-ground footage confirm what Israeli citizens experienced firsthand. No warning, no interception, just impact. Multiple strikes slipped past Israel's most fortified zones like phantoms, detonating with surgical brutality. The era of slow, predictable warfare is over. Haj Qaseem is no longer a myth. It is a proven, airborne truth. On the morning of June 22nd, Israel's Home Front Command released a sobering admission. The missile that struck central Haifa, shattering a public square and sending shockwaves through residential neighborhoods, was never detected. The country's sophisticated radar architecture, long hailed as one of the most advanced in the world, had gone completely blind. No interception, no alert, just fire and impact. The missile's maneuverable re-entry and hypersonic profile bypassed radar locks and tracking algorithms. Even the multi-layered defense system, a triad including Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow 3, was rendered impotent, not because it misfired, but because there was nothing to track. As the Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, bluntly admitted, "We didn't see it coming." This moment marked a fracture in Israel's long-standing image of invincibility. Until now, officials had confidently declared that over 90% of all hostile projectiles, from Gaza rockets to Iranian drones, were intercepted before impact. That illusion has now been cracked wide open. Despite recent upgrades, including tests of the Arrow system under live fire conditions, deadly outliers like Haj Qaseem slipped through, weaponizing stealth and speed to devastating effect. Ironically, several Western analysts had previously mocked Iran's missile program as exaggerated, outdated, and largely for domestic posturing. As one Israeli defense columnist reflected, "We thought Iran did everything wrong." And yet, they still got through. Now, even seasoned IDF commanders who once laughed off Iranian capabilities are reconsidering their assessments. The narrative has shifted from ridicule to recalibration. In military strategy, the most dangerous weapon is the one your doctrine refuses to believe in until it lands at your doorstep. The shockwaves from Iran's missile barrage were not confined to craters in Haifa or flames in Ramat Gan. The tremors rippled outward, across the Middle East, through the corridors of power, and into the nervous pulse of global markets. Inside Israel, the mood turned from confidence to crisis. Schools shuttered, airspace closed, and reserve brigades activated under emergency protocols. Entire cities were advised to remain in bunkers for 48 hours. The psychological toll was just as profound. Morale cracked, especially after the public learned that multiple impacts had occurred without interception. Regionally, the strike was a spark to a tinderbox. Within 12 hours, U.S. President Donald Trump ordered coordinated airstrikes on Iranian facilities in Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, targets linked to Tehran's uranium enrichment programs. B-2 bombers from Diego Garcia entered Iranian airspace under electronic jamming cover, while Patriot and THAAD systems were rapidly redeployed to Qatar, Bahrain, and UAE airbases. U.S. Navy destroyers in the Persian Gulf moved into full combat readiness. Globally, oil prices surged to their highest point since 2022 on fears of a Strait of Hormuz closure. Embassies in Tel Aviv, Tehran, and even Amman began partial evacuations. NATO convened emergency talks, while the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres issued an urgent plea for de-escalation, warning, "The next missile may not carry conventional warheads." China and Russia issued carefully worded statements urging restraint, but both quietly moved satellite assets to monitor U.S. military patterns in the Gulf. Eventually, back-channel diplomacy emerged. Qatar, with U.S. support, brokered a tentative ceasefire. The deal was fragile, temporary, and lacked enforcement, but for the moment, missiles ceased to fly. Meanwhile, Iran declared victory. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei claimed Tehran had slapped America in the face. But Western analysts warned Israel's counter-air campaign had crippled Iranian radar networks and forward missile depots, leaving Tehran bloodied, if not bowed. This is no longer about one missile, one night, or even one warhead. The Haj Qaseem strike represents a threshold moment in modern warfare. A moment that demands urgent reassessment from policymakers, generals, and civilians alike. The myth of impenetrable defense is now shattered. Israel's multi-layered shield, Iron Dome, David's sling, arrow, and Patriot was calibrated for predictable trajectories and known speeds. Haj Qaseem, moving at Mach 12 with optical seekers and mid-air maneuverability, proved that hypersonic stealth can break through even the densest radar nets. The era of reactive interception is ending. If Israel and its allies wish to survive the next wave, pre-launch suppression, striking mobile launchers before they ignite, must become doctrine. Proliferation risk. According to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Iran has ramped up to produce over 300 ballistic missiles per month, including Haj Qaseem-class models. If this technology bleeds into proxy militias, Hezbollah, Houthis, Hashd al-Shabi, the conflict map changes. The threat won't just be cross-border, but embedded, launched from residential zones, targeting cities far beyond Israel. Escalation threshold. For the first time in decades, Iran directly struck Israeli soil, a strategic red line. The question now is, will Israel retaliate in kind? Does targeting Tehran's production plants, or even command centers, become inevitable? And if so, what does the United States endorse or restrain? Diplomatic crossroads. The U.S. is quietly re-engaging in nuclear containment talks, fearing unchecked Iranian missile expansion. But Iran, emboldened, views its arsenal as bargaining leverage. Trust is non-existent. The ceasefire is a bandage on a hemorrhaging hostility. If a Mach 12 missile can bulldoze a city block today, what happens when hypersonic drone swarms become exportable? History reminds us, once a weapon is used in battle, it never goes back into the box. The question is no longer if it spreads, but who gets it next? The missiles that tore through Haifa and Tel Aviv did more than reduce buildings to rubble. They obliterated illusions. Illusions of technological superiority, illusions of distance, illusions that war could remain remote, theoretical, or containable. For decades, nations invested billions in layered defenses, believing that deterrence lay in walls of steel and radar. But a single missile, fast, agile, nearly invisible, cut through all of it. The Haj Qaseem didn't just hit Israel. It hit the foundation of 21st century defense logic. We now stand at a geopolitical fork. Down one path lies escalation, expanded airstrikes, proxy retaliation, AI-assisted warfare, and possibly nuclear miscalculation. Down the other, fragile diplomacy, intelligence realignment, and honest recalibration of how power is projected and perceived. But time is not a neutral witness. The fuse has already been lit. The question now isn't how many missiles were fired, but who's next in line to hold them. This is no longer about Israel and Iran alone. It's a test of the global order's resilience against new asymmetric warfare. If you're ready to go beyond the headlines, into the shadows where strategy is written in silence and speed, drop your thoughts below. Subscribe now to follow the unraveling of power, prophecy, and precision. Because tomorrow's war isn't coming.